everyone. I'd like to call to order this special meeting for the strategic planning. Do I need a roll call?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I, roll call?
Mr. McBride.
Here.
Ms. Fabian.
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez. Here. Mr. Riddle. Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay. Here. President Ewing.
Okay, we have 5 board members. Mr. Ewing is running late this evening. And at this time, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Cesario.
Thank you.
Nobody on public comment?
No, okay. Does anybody want public comment? There's a, no, that's okay. I mean, he didn't see anybody on the list, so I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, I guess should have let you do that.
Oh, that's okay. Do we have any public comments this time? Mr. Vukovic?
Mike there?
I can move this for you. Sorry, sir.
I won't. Good evening. Back in October, the board held a special meeting, and the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the superintendent's goals. And that meeting was strictly closed session. And there's been some rulings recently that that type of meeting cannot be held in closed session. I don't know if you're aware of that. There was a ruling just came out against Hinsdale. So the time frame is too late to file an official complaint with the Attorney General's office. But since the board is trying to be more transparent about things, I would suggest that you follow the law, and in this case here, open up the recording of that meeting to the public, because you held it illegally, and that information should be made available to the public. And I will be bringing this matter up again and talking to some other people in a legal capacity to see if there's a way to, if you don't willingly do it, if we can try to get that information available to the public, because once again, you were not advised properly. That was not a closed session item, and anything having to do with the superintendent's goals have to be done in this room at a public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vukovic. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in public comment? Hearing none, I will then turn the meeting over to Dr. Cesario.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Welcome, colleagues, community members, and other guests. This evening, we're going to, in this board workshop, we'll share our progress on Destination 2028. So we will provide an overview of the strategic planning timeline and activities, debut features of Destination 2028, share products associated with Destination 2028, and then discuss next steps. So just to give a little refresher, I know we've talked about this before, but wanted to talk about what strategic planning is. So it's an organizational management activity that we use to set priorities, focus our energy and resources, strengthen operations, and work on setting common goals and established around intended outcomes and results. Assessing those results and adjusting those plans and goals in order to meet the ever-evolving needs of the changing environment, in this case, within our district. So effective strategic planning articulates not only where an organization is going and the actions needed to make progress, but also the how, and will also provide opportunities to determine how it is successful. All right, so we started this process with stakeholder engagement. And what did that stakeholder engagement look like? We started with the Board of Education, much like a workshop like this. We held 2 of those workshops. But the purpose of that is to not only gather input from our board members to really kick off this process, where we then engage with other stakeholders in the community to gather input. We used a number of methods to do this. We started with the board. We started working with the board and we conducted a SWOT analysis, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we move through. We also used surveys. We used focus groups to gather our data.
I have a question.
Sure.
And so now, this, what you're talking about right now,
Yes.
is the past strategic plan, right?
No, it's about our new strategic plan. Because we went through the process, we started. I'm going to talk about aspects of Destination 2022, but right now we're talking about the data that we used and we collected to develop Destination 2028. Okay, any other questions? Do you have a comment? Or okay. So in June of 2022, we discussed priorities for both divisions, our academics and our operations and finance divisions. And we shared the vision for the future. And that was, when I say we, that was the members of the board here. And there were some other members of the public who also participated in that workshop. And then there was also a SWOT analysis that was conducted. So for those of you that are not familiar with the SWOT analysis, it's really identifying what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are as an organization. And so that was something that the Board of Education went through. In October of 2022, we talked about our plan for the strategic planning process, for gathering data, for including stakeholders. And we also celebrated areas of success, discussed opportunities for growth. So it was an extension of that previous meeting. And then there was a board reflection and setting a vision for what they would like to see between now and the time we reach 2028. As I mentioned earlier, there was surveys that were collected. That link was shared with students, parents, teachers, and community members. We had that open from August of 2022 until January of 2023. It was shared in both Spanish and English. And then we had shared updates regarding the results of that at board meetings and other events. We held focus groups. These focus groups were 5 to 8 stakeholders in various stakeholder groups. These were held in the beginning of the fall of 2022 and concluded in January of 2023. So we had district team members that facilitated these meetings, each with the same set of questions. And these stakeholders groups included teachers, paraprofessionals, teachers, and obviously community members. So the town halls, we had in-person meetings that were held throughout the fall of 2022 and continued into the winter of 2023. We also provided online accessibility. We responded to feedback in those town halls where there was some concern about going out to the community. So then we adjusted and extended that time so that we could accommodate those requests. We also shared the results from those surveys and from those meetings in these areas and what folks had to say. This had been shared as well. Here are some other examples related to some of the questions. This was one of the questions that was posed over the next 5 years, where the district's biggest challenges or needs in these various areas. And then in what areas has the district shown growth? What areas did the district need most improvement? And these are just a sampling of some of that information that was previously shared. What did we do with this data? So Mr. Bembry, I have to make sure I thank him and do this publicly because he was a really huge help in really facilitating a lot of this work. He has a lot of experience with this work, but he facilitated those meetings. He collected that data. He shared the report with us, and then we, as a team, reviewed that data, sorted that information, identified trends. We grouped the data by themes, and when you look at what we are presenting this evening, you'll see that these themes developed, bless you, into pillars. And so we've categorized them into pillars. So, nice segue here, the pillars of Destination 2028. What these are areas of focus. Again, these areas of concern, these areas of growth, the vision for what people would like to see. Again, all of these ideas, these trends were grouped into these pillars. So they're all aligned to our mission and vision of the district and serve to support and promote continuous growth at all levels of WPS 16. Please.
Yeah, okay, so I guess so we're just using the Destination 2022 to get, to kind of revamp Destination 2028, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so we're not gonna use the data that was collected.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, so I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very good question, and that's something that we're going to talk about here. We built Destination 2028 is built off of Destination 2022. And so the data that was collected in the board workshop, one of the things that we did was we celebrated areas of growth, we celebrated areas of success, and then there was also a discussion about areas that needed continuous improvement, that we needed to continue to work on. So there are things that were initiatives and goals that were set in motion under both divisions that started in Destination 2022 and were not necessarily completed, or completed to the point where it's still an area of growth. So we took that data. We also took the data that we collected from what people were saying was important and what they wanted to see, and a lot of it related back to the work that still needed to continue. So reading, improvement in the areas of equity and access. So those themes were presented in a lot of the conversations that we had in focus groups, in town hall meetings, and presented in surveys, and also discussed at the board workshop.
But that was in 2022.
2022 and into 2023, yes. So, and that one other piece here too, I just want to mention, is that doesn't mean that we stopped working on these goals in between this process. I think that's an important point to solidify. As I go through the rest of this, I will kind of denote where some of these areas took some time to develop, because it's totally different format than what we've had before. And I'll wait because I know Ms. Lensing had a question, so I'll take that right now too.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify, because this is something that I was very adamant about before I was on the board, to not approve the plan that they had earlier this year before new board members took position, because we would be monitoring the growth of the plan, and so we wanted to make sure. So that, I think, is why there was that gap and that extension into 2023 from the 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Lensing. All right, so these pillars, Pillar 1, enhancing learning experiences to maximize student achievement. Pillar 2, facilitating family and community engagement. Pillar 3, establishing safe and nurturing learning environments. And Pillar 4, ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is at the core of all that we do in the district. So these are very general and broad areas, but you'll see that we'll have initiatives that fall underneath, and then goals that fall beneath those. And along the way, we developed our framework for success, along with using respondability to monitor our KPIs and work with our staff members so that we can provide them support as they're working towards those goals. So again, you'll see what the pillar is, and then here's an initiative related to Pillar 1. This is one of our large initiatives related to a guaranteed and viable curriculum district-wide. And this really stems out of the work that we're doing around the science of reading. And so this is a major initiative that we will be implementing over the next many years, but this is something that relates to our Pillar 1. Pillar 2, parents and community members, a focus there on family and community engagement. The Wraparound Center is an initiative that we've been talking about for a couple of years, and that's also something that we'll be implementing and working to enhance. It's not just completing, it's done, it's an ongoing process, much like much of this plan. It's not about completing a task, it's about developing a practice and ensuring that we're monitoring the success of these initiatives and making adjustments as we move along. Pillar 3, establishing safe and nurturing learning environments. So a lot of this, when we're talking about the capital improvement, and a lot of this is a really great example of the work that started in Destination 2022. We're talking about the capital improvement, and a lot of that was done to enhance learning environments. So learning environments also includes playgrounds. It includes the spaces that we see within our buildings, classrooms, and other spaces. Those all enhance learning environments.
So that one, so if you go back to the previous, so to improve existing facilities and a nurturing learning environment. Okay, so that is not about the academics.
This is about this really good question. So it's about how capital and how operations and finance, all of those pieces are working to enhance. So Pillar 1 really had to do about the academics piece specifically, and everything we're doing is working to nurture and develop our students and our staff members. This specifically really talks about the capital improvement and how capital improvement leads to the development of students. So much like, again, the playgrounds and some of the other classroom, some of the purchases that we've made through IT to have a 21st century classroom, so those tools are there. All of those pieces are there. Thank you.
I'm thinking about what Ms. Hannah, the question she asked you, what do capital improvement have to do with humanity and learning environment? And when I hear that learning environment and improving curricula, I think about what you said earlier, family. I think about safety. I think about attendance. I think about those kind of things. But putting the boiler in is fine. Putting the rooftop in is fine. Buying new desks is fine. But to me, when I hear the loss of teachers, those are the things I hear when I start thinking about learning improvement.
So thank you, Mr. McBride.
That's kind of what I want to hear.
No, and these are, I just want to point out that these are just samples of initiatives. They're not all the goals that are going to be presented, because there are many goals. So those goals are under the capital improvement plan that you'll see. And then what you mentioned about making sure that we're recruiting and retaining teachers, that would also fall under a number of Mr. Moten's plans that he has, and they would be aligned to these. These are just the major initiatives that I was showcasing, not to mean that this is all encompassing of what the plan is in its entirety. It's just an example of initiatives that align to each of these pillars. Yes, do you want to?
So I think, again, being in the classroom, understanding that your environment has to be conducive to learning, right? So we've done a lot of things like flexible seating, creating spaces that are conducive to learning. If we don't have spaces that have all the tools and resources, and a classroom doesn't look like it did when I grew up, even in, I don't consider myself that old, but a classroom can't look like desks and rows and that's it. And, there has to be technology in there and, different furniture to really align with what they're doing. So for me, pillar 3, although it's not directly aligned to a student achievement goal, it plays into student achievement, because if it's raining in your classroom, you're not really focused on what the teacher's teaching. If it's cold, like you said, the boiler getting installed, if it's cold, I'm too busy shivering to worry about what the teacher is teaching. So it's not a direct link, but it does help. Yeah, it's a correlation to student achievement.
Sorry, I'm just going to add on to that, because we also have issues that are direct links, because we don't have schools with full gymnasiums. So that's a component as well. And then we have mobile units that need to be replaced. But I think we're all on the same page that this is one component and that learning is central, but there's different aspects that feed into that.
Most definitely, and I think it's just there's a number of factors that both divisions work together. Everyone that is here, we all work for the same cause, but there are specific ones that are aligned to specific pillars. But again, just to reiterate, thank you for the very thoughtful comments from all the board members, by the way. I just want to reiterate, these are not, this is not a comprehensive list. These are just examples. So I just want to make sure that you all know that. We're not just having 4 initiatives. There are many, and there are many goals under each of these pillars and initiatives. So thank you. So again, what I mentioned, the capital improvement plan under pillar 3, we spoke to that. Pillar 4, ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is at the core of all that we do in the district. So one of the big initiatives that we've been working on is the equity review of policies, which is again something that isn't really tangible necessarily, but it does have a huge impact to ensure that we are addressing inequities, that we are intentional about the work that we're doing, so that we're addressing the needs of every student and every family. Oh, yes. Okay.
When you start talking about equity, that's a big deal to me.
Here, I'm going to switch with you.
That's a big deal to me, because you start talking about families then. And when I hear equity, I think about students that have issues that we have to deal with expulsions, behaviors, and those kind of things. And the question is, I don't think we, at the core of what we need to do to be dealing with those students. With those students, you hear Anthony McIntosh always talking about trauma. And it's a lot of trauma in our schools. And I don't think our equity is touching that. And I say that because when I look at the outcomes of what's going on around me with the fighting, the disubordination, those kind of things, and truancy, all of those things, when I hear equity, I'm just wondering, are we really serious about equity to attack those issues?
Yeah, again, thanks for bringing that up. And I think you're going to see that under a number of initiatives, those areas are, first of all, they were covered under Destination 2022. And one of the things that was discussed not only here, but in our focus groups, our surveys, and elsewhere, was that we need to continue to work and improve in that area. Our other initiatives that are not listed here, again, because this is not a comprehensive list, but our middle school redesign, our high school transformation plan, when we talk about truancy, when we talk about attendance, when we talk about how we're addressing trauma, there are many goals within those initiatives that are addressing that are being measured, that have been measured over the last few years and continue to be measured. So I just want to, yes, most definitely, you're right on what you're saying, and I want to say thank you for that, but also that's a continuation of Destination 2022 too, also, rather.
So school environment, the climate in the schools. Hello.
Yeah, you're good.
The working environment for our staff, the violence in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and all of this looks good on paper, and as I was reading what was sent to the board members, everything is so general. There's nothing there's nothing specified in terms of, how this is going to get done. How this is going to get done. It's so general and broad that it really kind of, when I looked at it, and maybe it's just me, when I looked at it, okay, it was so general that I'm still looking for the substance.
I started with saying that they are very general. They are. We took the data, I aligned that to these various pillars, but then there are specific goals under each initiative. So we have initiatives that have goals, that have KPIs. And some of that, you're going to see that part of this plan is that we've developed something to be much more transparent so that community members can see our progress towards these goals. So Mr. McBride mentioned truancy. He also mentioned discipline. Sorry. He mentioned a number of factors. You're also mentioning safety and some other factors. We're going to share that data, and that was one of the things that we heard loud and clear, was being transparent and making sure that this information was available to our community members, not only to parents and students. So when we get further into the presentation, and actually you'll have some time to look at the dashboards and interact with them during this presentation, but you're going to see that a lot of those goals, a lot of those initiatives, that the metrics for those are available to the community. One of the things that we're working on refining is trying to make it as user-friendly as possible, so that people who are not, that don't have a degree in education can look at it and say, I want to know what the attendance rate is. I want to know how many African-American males are being, in the 9th grade, are being suspended. So we want to provide that opportunity to be transparent with the data, with what we're doing, with whether or not it's effective or not. This is oh, sorry, Ms. Hannah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, with the data that was gathered before, or are we doing a new gathering of data?
So you know what, I want to be very clear in this. Thank you for asking that question. So when I was referring to the data that was collected, that was the qualitative and the questions that we were asking folks in the focus groups, in the surveys, about what would need to be improved, what was working well, what was not working well. There were about 5 or 6 general questions that we're asking. So the other data, the data specific to safety or truancy or some of those other things, we're going off of real-time data. I think that's an excellent point, because that's part of the transparency. We don't want to go off data that's 3, 4, 5 years old. We want to have up-to-date data.
Right.
So with the attendance, what we want to do is we want to update that as regularly as possible. Attendance is something that we can really update probably weekly in most cases for the district. It's easy to do that. And then there are other metrics that we can do weekly. Some will be quarterly, some will be semester, and some will be at the year, right? But there are some metrics that we're looking at right now, like with our middle school and our middle school redesign, we looked at chronic truancy, and we established goals and provided supports to those principals and those schools so that we could drive at what was hitting chronic truancy and chronic absenteeism. So a lot of that data, though, that's going to be transparent to the community so that you can see it. The dashboards are new to our district, something that's in progress, and it's part of the reason why it took so long to really come to this meeting, because it was something that was developed internally, but we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And it's a process. So we'll be building on those dashboards as we go as well. And I'm going to unveil some of them tonight, and then some will come out later on. Well, you're not cutting me off. Here you go, sir.
One question. Dealing with truancy, can you give me some kind of idea of what we have done this year to eliminate truancy? Because I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything come across with paper. So what have we done to, when I hear truancy, I also say that tells me there's a tendency problem. So what have we done in any area to improve truancy?
That's another excellent question. So I'm going to have my team members chime in as well. But one of the first things we did was we defined what truancy was. So so as it is, so I love your reaction, because I think that that's what we thought too. But the way it's captured by the state means one thing, right? Truancy in general has a definition, but according to the state, it has another.
I don't care what the state says. When my kid is not coming to school,
I understand that.
at the end of the day, from an academic standpoint, his grades gonna be down.
So if I may, I'll just finish though.
So I can help with this. What Dr. Cesario is referring to is that the state has changed a definition for what chronic truancy is and is defined by the state, which every district is graded on, and it is part of the composite score for school designations, right? So that's why he's stating that we had to get clarity and understanding around that, because there were a few of our schools that really impacted their designation. And so that is one of the levers that they're looking at. A second example of this is, if the board remembers, that we had I think it was Spotlight on 60. This is a very, I'm not going to use that word. One of the initiatives is the attendance belt, where schools are in competition with one another. And then when the school has the highest attendance, they keep the attendance belts, and there's other incentives that go with that at different schools. So that was one thing that was spotlighted on 60, but there's a realm of other things that the truancy office, well, shall I say, outreach is doing. The second thing, can I just point this out? The worksheet, and Mr. McBride, please know we're going to answer your question. I'm going to ask if we can just get through the presentation, and then there's going to be time for questioning, because when Dr. Cesario is presenting, he's going to the dashboards and coming back, and I think if he's going to give you his ideology, philosophy behind it, and you're going to see that some of those questions are answered in the deck if he can just get through, and then we can chime in deeper with it. I think, because he'll be able to answer it. And then you'll get to see those forward-facing dashboards and the thought behind it. That is a suggestion. If not, some of those questions are already in this deck that we'll get to.
Can I just finish answering Mr. McBride's question, because I think it's important. So with the truancy piece, we had to talk about a definition, because what was happening is the information was not being captured accurately. We had to, so there's two pieces here: logistical piece, technical piece, and then one of support. And so we used all of those. So I just want to be very clear. I agree with you. We have to make sure that students are in school. That's the top priority. Right. But we also.
I get it. The bureaucracy talk, I get that. I'm looking for substance, like I heard somebody say earlier.
I have both.
Truancy is when you don't come to school and you stay at home, and you do that on an ongoing basis. So when I hear that, at the end of the day, that adds up to, your grades gonna be bad if you're not in school. So if we got truancy problems, my question was, what are we doing, or what have we done to resolve that? That was
Sure. Sure. Okay. Well.
Maybe like Teresa said, it'll show up later on during the presentation.
That question won't, so let him.
Go ahead. We have. Well, go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Speaking on behalf of Mr. Dupuy and the Office of Student Outreach, some of the things that Mr. Dupuy organized with his staff over the summertime was to look at the chronic absentee families and needs from each school and kind of tier them out in terms of which families could respond maybe just through a phone call, conversation, and which families needed a little bit more personalized, finding out what's really the barriers, what's going on, what supports do they need, and really kind of call out what the concern is with their students' absenteeism rates. And so they did significant amount of communication over the summertime, which they'll repeat again this year. And so we have seen students who weren't in school on a regular basis all through last year, which impacted the data superintendent was referring to, really be mitigated this current year. And we have students who've come to school much more regularly. Outreach also conducts one-on-one meetings with families at every school every week. And they keep logs of that data and that information with principals. They do principal meetings, parent meetings with the outreach team member. We have truancy officers going to do home visits on a daily basis. And then we've been able, through the support of the Board of Education, with increasing some of the staffing levels at the Brookside campus as an example, we've been able to reposition how we are helping to support students get from point A to point B in between classes during passing periods, which also impacts truancy, because even if you're one of the interesting ways the state calculates is that it's not just whole day absences, it's period absences. So if you're 5 minutes late to this class and 2 minutes late to that class and then 3 minutes late to the next one, eventually over time that will all add up to being, a third of a day or a half of a day, and in time it will add up to being a whole day absence if you have a lot of ongoing period minute absences. And so by having the increased staffing levels at the Brookside campus and working with operations and safety, Mr. Wilson, just in the past 2 weeks, we've been able to decrease the period absences by over 1,000 in just the past 2 weeks. And so we still have room to work, but those are some of the strategies that we have been implementing this year that have shown success at schools.
Just to add on to that, one thing that we've talked about, but I haven't heard tonight, is when they're saying also that they had to define what truancy is, to expand on the superintendent's point, it's not just unexcused absences, it's also excused absences. So if our kids, like my kids have gotten sick and I've gotten a letter in the mail, even though they were excused absences, that they're bordering on chronic absenteeism. And so I think with that being a component that we're concerned about, we also need to look how we can increase the health of our students as well so that they can be in school, because I'm not an advocate of go to school when you're sick, because that gets everybody else sick and that causes big problems. So I think that's part of also what they had to redefine, which is frustrating from a parent standpoint.
I guess what Patty said, it don't add up in my mind. So me and Ms. Hannah have expulsion. And when I look at the data, all the expulsions here, their grades are bad because of the fact they wasn't in school. And these expulsions go on week after week. And when we look at the data, it's always because of the fact they wasn't in school. So, and the truancy officers that you're speaking about, Ms. Dupree, is sitting right there with us when we're listening to these things. So it ain't adding up to what you just said about the correction that you made. I mean, and all you got to do now is yourself, set in some of the expulsions to see how often they are. Then when you set in them, look at who the expulsions are to change to. Thank you.
Thank you. So we had discussed this as well, that shift in how the goals were constructed to make sure that they were not only specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, but also inclusive and equitable. And so what does that mean? These SMARTY goals ensure that we're asking, is what we're doing inclusive? Is what we're doing equitable? Are we addressing the needs of all student groups? Are we addressing the needs of the adults and all of the adults here? So that is part of a process that, again, when we spoke about the framework for success, setting goals within divisions, departments, and teams, this is how those goals are set. So those goals aligned to the initiatives, aligned to the work that is happening right now and monitored through respondability, and in the overall process of a framework for success. Again, here's just a definition, and we've shared this a few times before, but that's also in the deck for you. So it defines what the definition of a SMARTY goal. Elements of Destination 2028. So one of the things that I had mentioned before is that we're changing just from having a brochure. We wanted to make sure that this was a living document and that we were addressing these goals and making sure that we're sharing the data of our progress, our areas of growth, in as close to real time as possible. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that through a website that has dashboards. We're going to share a postcard with the community that will have a what do you call it? A QR code. Thank you. I couldn't remember. Yeah, that'll have a QR code that will take you to a video that will describe what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what it connects to. We really want to ensure that not only the Waukegan school community, but the Waukegan community abroad has an understanding of what we're doing and where they can find information. So that is something else that'll be going on. And then we'll also have a brochure so that people can look through this in a paper format and have it in hand. So right now what we're going to do is, Nick, do you want to navigate through the website? And we'll go there. And I don't know, I think board members have their devices. They could probably link in right now and hit that that link rather, and then it will take you live to this is not on the website yet. We're still working on it, but you will have access, board members have access to it through this link right now. So we can go through that and you can navigate to this page, and right now you can see that the 4 pillars are there, and then each pillar has a link to dashboards. We'll start with inclusive environments. Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. Take a minute.
Do they have the link in their email then?
It's in exec's content for the board docs.
We'll get it.
Yeah, and if not, we can have Nick email. No, you can follow through it. I just did want to give you the opportunity to navigate on, and remember, not all of the pages are live, but this dashboard is ready to go. This specific dashboard. One other dashboard is ready. There are 2 that are still in progress, but no, this is not. So we'll look at it. If you can, Nick, can you click on inclusive environments? So this will have all the data. Let's go to high school homepage. So when I mentioned the high school transformation plan is one of the initiatives we're working on and all the goals that are associated with that, can we make this larger? Thanks. But this is an interactive dashboard that you can use to look at the data, and this is updated. We're not going through a third party. This is all in district. Dr. Brown's team, Dr. Jonathan Brown's team did a really wonderful job of putting this together, and they're doing a really great job of maintaining that. Yes, thank you. We can, yeah. It has been a big lift. The ASAP team did a great job of working on this. We have OSC is also working on dashboards right now, but this is new. And again, this speaks to where we're trying to be with not only monitoring our goals, but being more transparent with what we're doing with the community.
I was just going to say that I obviously appreciate the effort because some of the data that we have to submit to the state, although we're always gathering it in real time within the district, by the time it meets the community, it's a year later or whenever they publish it. And so we have to talk in the present as well as the past so people understand where we're at. So with this, it's going to be more accessible, but I also appreciate that below, it's very tiny, but underneath the percentage marks, you can actually see the change, whether we've increased, whether we've decreased. And although some of them are very minuscule, like 0.11 or 3 point whatever, you know, it's just a percentage point, but those are students whose attendance is increasing or whose grade point average went down slightly or whatever. So that's what.
Yeah, no, and I thank you for, you know, taking over this part of the presentation, because that's exactly what I was going to point out. So and I think it's important to note that in some of these percentages, we're not going to see when we talk about graduation rate. It's at one point in time of year, right? So we can look at last year's and we can look at that. But here are indicators: freshman on track, sophomore on track, attendance rate. All of those things help to contribute to that number. So we can keep a running look at what this looks like. And as was pointed out, those little triangles, it says up or down. So we talk about 0.8 or 0.1%. And when we're talking about attendance, that's significant. If we're talking about shifts that get over 1%, when we're talking about attendance, that is pretty major. So I know sometimes we talk, well, things aren't moving. Well, if they move in these areas in a tenth of a percent, it's significant.
No, I disagree.
What?
I disagree because again, those small percentage, small points, right? Those points equate to bodies.
Most definitely.
And so how many bodies are in? 0.1%.
We're saying the same thing. And, well, when it comes to attendance, that going down can make a difference. And that going down 0.1% can have a significant impact to a classroom, to a school, to a building. And I think it's important to note that all of it, up or down, is significant. And we have to address it. Now, to your point, in terms of performance metrics, depending on what it is, it may not be that as significant.
Right, and that's what
But
should.
when we're talking about attendance, and when we're talking about truancy, when we're talking about those things, those incremental up or down, they make a difference.
Right.
They do. So I just wanna be clear on that.
And I hear you.
Agreeing with what you're saying.
Right.
Saying that depending on the metric that you're looking at, those 0.1% can make a big difference.
I get it, and you know what would also be a little bit more transparent. Okay, you see those percentages up there? Those percentages don't mean anything to community member people. You understand? And I have always, and I am an advocate for percentages being displayed with the actual number that they represent.
Okay, that's good feedback.
And that needs to happen. That's transparency. To tell me how many 42% of, I can't read what that is.
That's a FAFSA completion.
Okay, how many kids was that? How many kids completed the FAFSA? 42%? Well, how many is that? You know, we need the numbers.
Sure, all right.
And
So as a parent and a community member, I look at these numbers and we say those small things make a big difference, but how accurate are those? And I'm going to be devil advocate here. My son's at home all week with COVID, but he's marked present in every one of his classes. How? So that means all those are wrong. Because he's being marked that he's in the building, he's not at home. He's sitting at home with me. He's sick. And it's happening day in and day out. My kid's in school. We can get the kids in school. But what's happening with these kids when they're in school? Because they're still not showing up to class while they're in school. They're skipping within the buildings. But nobody notices this. It's not just getting the kids to the school. You know, we're not going to change attendance, chronic absenteeism, if we don't get down to the root of the problem. Why are these kids not coming to school? And a lot of things play in these factors. If we're not going to address those, we ain't never going to change nothing. When I have a 12-year-old in the other room tell me he don't want to go to school because every day they got a different substitute teacher in their classroom, every single day, he says, Dad, I could just stay home and do all my work online. This is the stuff we're talking about. When he has 3 long-term subs and teachers are being switched out in the middle of the year, and each period, you know, ELA. Ms. Foltz is gone now. ELA, he has first and second. Last week, the new teacher they just hired was out all week. And he has a different teacher in there every period, but there is no instruction going on. And for example, first period, he had the climate and control specialist in there, babysitting. Second period was a gym teacher, babysitting. No instruction going on. Same thing with all this testing going on right now. Why does instruction stop? Me and Mr. Cesario had that conversation. Why? Yeah, we're testing other people, but the other people that it doesn't affect, the instruction shouldn't stop for them.
Amanda, can you hand the mic over to? Thank you. I think you have to speak on it so it can work.
Thank you, Mr. Sabecki. And someone from my team will reach out. But for this board workshop, it really is for the board to look at the strategic plan. So I'm going to ask that if the audience can allow the board to go through the presentation, and then I don't know how the board president or vice president at the end will allow people to chime in, because we only have an hour and a half for this presentation to run the board through a few activities, get their feedback, have them have an understanding of the artifacts and tools that will be released in March. And so we can't lose that time. But there will be a place for all of this. And Ms. Patty, since I see you here, if you can have somebody circle back with Mr. Sabecki.
But you know what, though, this process here, as far as a strategic plan, everybody, you all talk about you got the input from stakeholders. Okay, well, this has already been put together. It's already been put together by the superintendent and her team. The strategic plan. A strategic planning encompasses everybody that wants to be involved with developing a strategic plan. And so, if I'm going to be a part of a strategic plan, I don't want to come in and you already got the plan and you just telling me what's in the plan. That's not developing a strategic plan with transparency.
So thank you for that comment. I just do want to share that in the beginning we talked about how we overviewed what the plan was going to be, how the stakeholder engagement was going to be. We held 2 meetings to get the input from board members. It did take time to go through the process. We were collecting the data. It wasn't, we did use Mr. Bembry to help us with that. I'm happy to have any other feedback regarding the plan, but
No, go ahead.
No, I don't, I just wanted to reiterate that point, that we provided an overview of what the process was going to be. And so I was unaware of any other feedback from that time.
And I also believe that Dr. Cesario also walked us through on how we had community sessions, which many of the community members that are here and teachers did attend those sessions to give input. And we showed at the beginning slides some of the input. So if we can, I just want to be respectful to the board, and we get through the presentation, and then I know there's going to be questions, and there will be an avenue for us to get through that, but I think we're not even 50% through the presentation or the activity, and the workshop goes to 7:30, not stating that. That's up to the board on what that looks like, but this is an actual workshop, not a board meeting, to get the board's input and view on the strategic plan. So just want to keep us focused and grounded in where we're going, and then we can onboard questions, etc. So let's continue to go through the presentation.
So I think we have to move off of this but you all have, I have my computer right there. You're welcome to, Ms. Lensing's kind of going to dig in, feel free. But wanted to make sure that you had access to that. We're going to go back to the slide right now. So we also have the video that's up and ready. All right. And so when we're talking about those dashboards, they're going to be regularly monitored and adjusted. Outward facing, include dashboards to share progress regarding goals and initiatives, and engaging the entire WPS 60 community. So you already looked at one of the sample dashboards, able to interact with that. We also, this is the postcard. So Nick, do you want to distribute the sample postcard? It's not on there yet because we have to send it back. It will be. There will be one there. We have to send it back to the printers. These are just samples. They're not done yet. All right. So momentarily, I'm going to ask for feedback on these artifacts, on these examples here. So on the brochure, on the dashboards, on the postcard, and on the website. Yes.
So is this being sent out just to WPS students or the community at large? Every WPS district,
Every citizen,
household?
every household, rather. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and then there's a draft brochure that Nick will also share. Now, this is a very early draft. There are some additional pieces that have to go in here. We have most of the information. It's just organizing it, and so, but there you have it. So we'll take, I think we'll take about 15 minutes. Superintendent, you think 15 minutes to, there's some Post-its. You see that there are poster paper that have postcard, website, brochure, and the dashboards will be on this one. If you want to,
These are not for the public.
not yet, because they're not finished yet. I mean, the folks who are here may definitely provide feedback and look at them. Please do. Yeah, they're just not ready for release yet. There's some items, goals that have to be updated, some that are old. But again, there are Post-it notes and poster paper. So you please review each of those items. If you have a device, Nick will share the link again, and we'll be able to log into those dashboards and look at those. And we'd like some feedback. So if you could put those on Post-it notes and then place them in the appropriate area, that would be wonderful. So we'll say 15 minutes. 15 minutes to review this stuff. Is that cool with you? Yep. All right, great. Do you want to say some words? Or? Okay. All right. Do you want the board to work together? Or I think it. Work. Okay. All right. So we'll set the timer for 15 minutes, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. Okay. So I really thank you for all the thoughtful comments. Again, if you could put these under the appropriate spots along the wall here, that would be helpful. We will get that information so you can see what other folks wrote. We'll share that with you. So just talking about next steps, the monitoring of dashboards will be ongoing. Right now, if you've looked in that link, you'll see that there's only a couple dashboards that are active. Some are still being built as we speak. The family and community engagement is being built. Another one regarding capital improvement and finance, there will be a table there that, a web page there that will have dashboards also. So that leads me to the next action is the expansion of dashboards related to goals and initiatives across both divisions. And I just want to reiterate this point that this is a process that's not stagnant. So we'll be taking ongoing feedback. We'll be sharing updates. I heard a really good piece of feedback about going out into the community and sharing this information, sharing what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what it connects to. I thought that was a really good piece of feedback. So hopefully that makes it on one of the Post-it notes. I appreciate that. Thank you. So we're going to review and finalize the brochure and website by March 1st. Postcards mailed on a piece of feedback that we received. Very good feedback. We might push that date because we don't want this to get lost in all the election materials. So I thought that was some really great feedback. We're going to invest the time and the money in that, and we don't want it tossed in the garbage. So we'll have to choose a later date for that. So I thought that was really great feedback. Thank you. I just want to thank you. I think it was a really great conversation. It's not the end of the conversation, it's just the beginning of the conversation. And so we'll be updating these brochures, we'll be updating these items, but we'll also be sharing this information regularly so that we can get better at being transparent with our data and our progress towards goals, and that we can update these goals. Thank you. Superintendent?
Oh, no, I was going to just add, I didn't hear you state to the board that they're going to get the electronic copy of this and they have till next Friday to continue to give us feedback.
Yes. Yes, thanks. I did mention it to a few board members, but not everyone, so I'll do that right now. We did send an electronic copy, a PDF of the brochure. We will we're open to having suggestions and feedback. You can send that to both myself and Nick. And as I stated before, we'll share the information or the feedback that was provided on each of those items here today. So please feel free in the next week or two to provide us with additional feedback. We look forward to hearing that. And I thank you for participating. And again, thank you for the really great questions and the thoughtful insights that were shared today. I'm going to turn it over to Board President Ewing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Cesario. Appreciate walking the board through this, and I apologize for my tardiness. With that, the rest of the board will be, after we dismiss, going downstairs into closed session, and then we will be adjourning from there. We do appreciate the public and the administrators that did come out this evening. Again, we know we've been working on this for a while. Appreciate the efforts of the team. Thank you for allowing us some time to work collaboratively. And with that, I'd like a motion to go into closed session under exception C1. Motion by Ms. Lindsay, second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions on the motion? Roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Riddle. Miss Hannah. Miss Lansing. President Ewing.
Yes, we are now going into closed session. If the board needs a restroom break, if we can meet downstairs in 5 minutes, quicker we can get down, the quicker.